I'm Margaret from SA Oscars Law, and we're really happy to welcome you all here today, especially furry friends. The speakers that we do have here today are the Honourable Michelle Lensing, Shadow Minister for the Environment and Deputy Leader in the MLC, Deputy Opposition Leader, sorry. The Honourable Tammy Franks from the SA Greens, Member of the Legislative Council, and Stephen Kenny, who is a Director on the Board of the RSPCA and a very well-known human rights lawyer. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce Stephen to you, and he's going to speak to you about the issues as he sees them from the point of view of a rights-focused person and a director on the board of the RSPCA.
Thank you. And thank you all for coming out. I'll try and stand out there so I can see you all. And it's great to see on a Sunday like today that so many have come along and that so many have actually brought your dogs, which I think is a great thing in our society that we don't have enough of. We don't see enough dogs in public, and it is nice because they are important to us and provide a real balance in our lives that sometimes reminds me of things that are real and are not real, and animals are really important. But firstly, I'd just like to say that a lot of people don't know about puppy factories, and I did a straw poll around my work before I came here to ask what people really knew about dogs and dogs you buy in pet shops and things like that. And mostly people said they're not a good idea, but we don't know much about them. And so it's really great to see all of you willing to come out here today to publicise that. But the other thing that concerns me, we think that there really aren't puppy factories in South Australia, and I don't know whether there are or there aren't. But what I discovered in my own office was that people were buying dogs from pet shops that had come from puppy factories. And this was a real concern to me. And I'll tell you the story of Baxter, one of the women at work bought, and she lives down at Semaphore, and walked past the pet shop down to a local coffee shop. And she wasn't looking to buy a dog, but she noticed Baxter in the window and was a very small puppy. But what she also noticed was that Baxter had an obvious hernia, that after a week or so she realised that the pet shop owner wasn't doing anything about. And so she went in there and effected her own rescue. She bought the dog and took it immediately to a vet. Now she knew nothing about factories, puppy factories or anything like that, and had no idea. She went to the vet and said, look, this dog's got a problem. And the vet said, oh yes, probably come from a puppy factory. And she said, well, what do you mean? And she discovered that not only did he have the hernia, his teeth were also clear. They were not solid. The dog had not had sufficient milk when it was a baby. And when she got the dog home, she realised the dog also had sort of ongoing personality problems. It was scared of everything. It was shy. It was quite neurotic. And these are all of the effects that we see in puppy farms, and they are something that we need to avoid. So my message, I've got several messages, but one of them is talk to people around you who are looking for animals. Tell them not to go to the pet shops, because mostly those dogs have probably come from some puppy factory, even if they come from Victoria or Queensland, where we think this one, where Baxter came from. Don't buy there. They don't need to. You can go to the RSPCA or other animal rescue services that do have dogs that you can adopt. And they've been well cared for there and loved and looked after. This is not actually an industry that we need, so we can well do without it, and certainly the dogs can as well. And so that's the message that I'd like you to take away. When people are talking about dogs, warn people about those, because once the pet shop owners realise that they're not profitable, then they'll look at other options. And the RSPCA have been talking about trying to work with the pet shop owners not to have pets stuck in cages in their shops, but to have, you know, perhaps videos of dogs that you can then go and see at your local shelter. And so we need to advance more on those sorts of things. And the other message I have for you is that although it'd be great to have some specific legislation banning the farming of dogs in this manner, in the meantime there are things you can do. And the RSPCA is the government-appointed body for the prosecution of cruelty against animals. And so if you are aware of a puppy factory in South Australia, ring the RSPCA, tell them that, you know, there is a puppy factory at a particular place and that the dogs are being poorly treated. And the RSPCA is not after dog breeders or people who care for their animals. They're not there, but they are there to protect animals. That's what their role is. So if you notify them, their inspectors will go and investigate the matter. And if they find that dogs are being ill-treated, they will prosecute them. And there's been a lot of high-profile prosecutions from the RSPCA, and the RSPCA is becoming more active, particularly in the area of farmed animals, so that they are taking a broader role than perhaps they have traditionally. But it is the role that the government has appointed them to do, and they will follow it up. So if you've not got, you know, any puppy factories in South Australia or even elsewhere, report them to the RSPCA and get the RSPCA to go and investigate it. They will do that, and they will prosecute. So we all can do something about it. So I'd just like to thank you for coming, and to remember, if they are, you know, your friends are looking for animals, suggest the RSPCA or other animal welfare agencies, and if you become aware of puppy factories, tell the RSPCA, because all around Australia they are the bodies that are appointed to prosecute animal cruelty, and they will do it, and we will see that they do it. Thank you very much for coming.
We're all animal lovers, I guess, I'd say, by the fact that you're all here. And we would be in the vast majority of Australians who believe that animals should be treated with care and respect and should not be treated in appalling conditions as they are in puppy farms. So what's the difference between people here and those who breed animals purely for profit and not caring about their welfare? It's that we believe that there's a minimum standard of care that is owed to every animal, that they should be kept in proper housing and fed properly and loved and allowed to play and all those sorts of things. The way that the law operates in South Australia at the moment is that we do get some of this right, and as you've heard from the RSPCA, they are tasked with the job of looking into those cases where animals are being treated cruelly and prosecuting them where they can. There are other things that we can do as well. We're still waiting on the revised codes of practice for animals, which is looking at things like whether there's immunisation certificates that go with new animals when they are sold to someone. And I think those things would probably help go some way to ensure that those animals have been given that standard of care in their life before they are sold on to someone. The Liberal Party at the last election had a policy that all animals must be de-sexed, and that whether that's from a pet store, a breeder or from a shelter, and we also wanted to look at the issue of microchipping and immunisation. Now, we didn't win the election, so that'll still be our policy leading into the next election. I love dogs, but I love them so much that we can't have them because my husband and I have such ridiculously busy lives that we can't guarantee that we'd walk them and pat them. So instead we've got two very overindulged cats. Lucy came from the Animal Welfare League 12 years ago. She's still going strong. And I've got another kitten that I adopted 5 years ago, and they're both desexed, microchipped, and all those things, which I think every animal deserves to have a good home and to be well looked after.
Congratulations for turning out for what is the inaugural Oscars Law rally in South Australia. As we know, last year we saw the first Oscars Law rally in Victoria, and I do understand that we've got Oscars Law rallies around the country today. So this is a movement that is young, but it is growing, and let's hope that in fact this might be the last Oscars Law rally we have to have, because certainly The cause that you've got and what you're asking for is something that I think almost every Australian would agree with. That is better treatment of dogs and laws to make sure that what happened to Oscar never happens again. Now, I think most of you here know about Oscar, but I'll repeat it just in case anyone hasn't read the material. Oscar was in fact rescued from a puppy factory in Victoria. At the time, he was suffering from malnourishment, infected ears, dental disease, grass seed abscesses and extreme matting of his fur. He was actually returned to his abusers because in fact there the law did not protect him, and in many cases the law still is not protecting dogs across the country. It's not good enough and we're here to end that. The reason puppy factories are such a scourge is not just because of the way that the breeding conditions basically suck the life out of a bitch who is bred over and over and over again in disgusting conditions, with being malnourished, living sometimes in quite putrid conditions where, as if anyone's seen the videos, the smell of ammonia from the urine and the faeces is all around. There is no adequate food, and that poor dog is giving birth over and over again in these putrid conditions and often suffering from things like mastitis, as she's constantly on a cycle of feeding the puppies and then giving birth again. It's just no life for that poor dog. But the worst thing is, once the dog can't actually breed another litter that's of a size to make her worthwhile for the owner to keep her, they are often killed. It is a tragic and sad life. We do not want to see dogs living like that. Then of course there's the beautiful little, often designer dogs that are bred from that poor bitch. She suffers a quite horrific life, but they also, although they go on to loving owners, the start of their life is something that they will never recover from. They've been bred in such poor conditions, they've had no socialisation in the crucial early 12 weeks of their lives, and so often not only are they badly socialised, they also have diseases and ongoing conditions such as hip dysplasia and other congenital diseases that would have been sought out and discovered by a reputable breeder. Now, I've been to the RSPCA and I have seen the rows and rows of cages of beautiful little white fluffy puppies. I call them the Paris Hilton puppies. They're gorgeous designer dogs, and many kids seeing them in a pet shop store would want them, or seeing them on an advertisement in the paper would want them. The thing is, if we buy them, then we are feeding into that cruelty. And what we need is actually point of sale laws. We need the dogs to all be microchipped. We need proper tracking systems so that when a dog is advertised as sold, a microchip and a number travels with that dog, and bad breeders can be tracked down and held accountable for their practices.
I'd like to see the passing of Oscar's law.
We want Oscar's law, and we want it now.
Oh, I'd like Oscar's law also.
Okay, I want Oscar's law.
My name's Olivia and I'm a volunteer for SA Dog Rescue, and I want Oscar's law.